welcome everyone. It's 3:30, so I'm just going to go ahead and get us started. I know there's always folks kind of joining, so might take little pauses here and there as I'm introing just to get the room, but of course these are all coming on here. All right, but welcome everyone. We are having a session here of IWIN, the Illinois Work-Based Learning Innovation Network. And at this one, we're really talking about IT and the work-based learning experiences along that continuum within IT. So you're going to hear from a few different presenters today and how they're implementing some of these work-based learning pieces in IT, how they're thinking about it. But really do want to know as well from you all, if there's anything that you're doing in IT that you'd like to share as well. This is definitely a space for us to collaborate and connect and share those pieces. And I'm Heather Penzak. I'm the Director of Innovation and Implementation here at Education Systems Center. Been supporting the IWIN network since, October of 2020 here. So we just continue to meet as a network and share resources and have communities present. So I'm going to do just some very kind of brief intro stuff here, get you all connected with some different resources, and then turn it here to our presenters. But would love to know who's here today, especially for those who are sharing. Please include in the chat, just go ahead and write your name, title, organization. And if there's something top of mind for you when you're thinking about designing or implementing work-based learning experiences in IT, please go ahead and put those in the chat, and our presenters can even take a look at those and see if there's any of them that they can address as they're sharing about their models that they have. And always, Zoom life, those logistics of just making sure you're muted, right? Your computers and your phones. And we'll pause between each community sharing after their presentation if you have questions, but I'm here, I'm kind of the screen share, chat monitor, right? So if you have questions, comments, questions, also if someone says something and it spurs a resource or a model or something that you're aware of, please go ahead and put that in the chat as you might be inspired to do so. Again, just creating that community connections and sharing model within this session here today. And good to see you all. Thank you for putting that info in the chat. And so IWIN, I think most of the folks on here have been to IWIN before, but we really are, again, this network that meets, monthly or every other month and looking at what those innovative models are that are happening in work-based learning. We had kind of an initial focus on virtual, I think was the catalyst here for our network, but beyond that now we're talking about all kinds of models, right? But really do want to engage in conversations on when we're putting all these efforts into designing these work-based learning experiences, how are we creating them in a sustainable, high quality way? How are we making sure that they're providing broader, more equitable access, especially as we think about our more underserved populations and how we might be building social capital for Black and Latinx students, those students who we think about might not be accessing that social capital without gaining access to these really meaningful work-based learning experiences. And one of the best parts is the connections that are built here too. So, I know folks will connect even within the chat or within when we do have time and do breakout rooms, connect within there, but it really is just building those connections, knowing that we don't all have to start at zero when we're trying to design something, but there's so many models and resources out there that we can share with one another. And as needed, right, thinking about where there could be state policy changes or support systems, as you all are thinking about work-based learning and what it means to create those sustainable, high quality models that do provide more equitable access. So I'm going to put the link to the presentation here in a moment, and it's always shared afterwards along with the recording, but you can link all the different resources on there. You can sign up for our newsletter to make sure that you're always kept in the loop on these pieces too. But today and the focus for this school year has really been looking at the work-based learning continuum from career exploration to those career development experiences focused on a specific endorsement or industry area. So today is going to focus in on IT and looking at these kind of three buckets here for you all. And not going to spend a whole bunch of time going over these definitions, but do just want to keep those of you who may not be as aware, Illinois does have definitions for these work-based learning experiences. So career exploration, engaging directly with employers, learning about different industry sectors and occupations, team-based challenges. They're really looking at that group problem-based learning project. They're getting mentoring though from adults with expertise in that area. And your career development experience are your supervised work experiences, typically thought of as an internship, right? But it encompasses a lot of other opportunities as well, like a supervised agricultural experience. It just meets those 6 components and then it would count. So these are there really as establishing those minimum quality thresholds to say, if you're going to offer this type of experience and it's going to provide meaning and value to young people, then it should meet this definition, right? And They are broad enough, though, to encompass a whole variety of experiences. And so within IT, just want to flag a few resources for you all before I move and turn it over to Gina here. But we do have a model program of study in information technology that outlines some different related coursework, career focused, as well as some of those core academics, and also goes into the post-secondary tracks and those different occupations that have that living wage, high growth. And so you can watch a recording of this to get some background on it. And there's also a full guide and a diagram. So as you're thinking about work-based learning and making sure that's connected to the coursework that students are engaging in for IT, this is a really helpful guide to get that full picture for you all. We also, on the iWin Resource Hub, we have some ideas for inspiration for team-based challenges in information technology. So there's fully built out models and templates. There's also some of these ideas for inspiration, right? To just kind of spur that thinking. And again, you're going to hear more about some different these team-based challenge examples here today, but there are resources available for you through iWin. There's also a guidebook. It's a little bit older now, but still has a lot of really great information. And this was developed in collaboration with the Illinois Science and Technology Coalition, but they list a lot of different experiences in IT, both in team-based challenges and for those career development experiences. They have a summary of it, the timeline, their funding model, some case study examples. So it's a helpful guidebook, again, to remind you that there are folks who are doing this, there's models of it, there's resources for it to kind of look at and think, okay, how could this model, how could this example fit into my own context and work for my own students and community? We also had at the Illinois Success Network Conference, previously Illinois 60 by 25 Network, we had a lot of great sessions on work-based learning, as well as a whole bunch of other sessions all about that college and career pathway, that transition into post-secondary, life in post-secondary. So definitely encourage you to check out these sites focused on, or these sessions focused on work-based learning, but also all of the other learnings and sessions that were there as well. There's some really good plenary conversations too. So included the link there for you all to all the different recordings and presentations. I think my last announcement is that, so I've been supporting a pilot opportunity, a grant opportunity through the Illinois State Board of Education for communities across the state to pilot a career exploration and or a career development experience this school year. And so we're going to have a showcase coming up on Tuesday, April 26th from 10 to 11:30. That's going to be open broadly to anyone interested in attending. And there'll be communities who are going to share. We have about 5 to 6 communities in that first hour who are going to really share their pilot and their model, their lessons learned. And then that last half hour is going to be you being able to say, okay, I really wanted to learn more about that presentation, and being able to go into a breakout room and dive a little bit deeper with that community, ask some questions and learn further details about their pilot and about their experience. So there's a link to register in there, but it'll be really exciting. There's some communities who have done some very cool things and learned a lot along the way as they've been implementing these experiences. All right, and with that, I'm going to turn it over to our work-based learning presenters here. So we have from the Grays Lake District, we have Gina here. Alex is joining us from the Lake County Tech Campus, and we have a crew here from Science Olympiad who's going to be sharing with you about the work-based learning, the experiences that they have in IT and their perspectives, as well as providing just some ideas for inspiration and resources for you all as you are thinking about, starting a journey in work-based learning in IT, or maybe enhancing some existing programs that you all have. But with that, I'm going to put the link to this presentation here in the chat, and then I'm going to turn it over to Gina to introduce themselves, and then let me know when it makes sense to pull up that link, Gina.
Sounds good. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Gina Schuyler. I am a CTE department chair for Grays Lake District 127. We are in the far northern suburbs, and my district supports 2 schools, Grays Lake Central and Grays Lake North. I also oversee for our district careers and community partnerships. The ironic aspect of this, when Heather had reached out to me, I said, well, I'm attending this because this is an area that finding internships and experiences for our students is something that I continue to want to grow in our district. And although this is an area of high need, high growth in our area, it is an area that I continue to try and make this particular career exploration, team challenges, and experiences for our students more robust. So today, 2 of the experiences that I'm going to share, the first one, Heather, if you could pull up, is the Mobile Makers EDU. Mobile Makers is part of Uncharted Learning, and we have a mobile apps class that we offer in what we're developing as our IT pathway. We are a school that is endorsed for the career pathway endorsements in our district, and we will be endorsing students this year, so we're excited about that. But we utilize some of the existing, and I encourage you to look at through your existing curriculum that a lot of schools are utilizing. There are embedded contests that involve team challenges in that. And I'm using the Uncharted Learning and Mobile Apps EDU. They have both a winter and a spring contest for coding. And what's unique about this is it's very individualized. So as the students are getting instruction through the mobile apps EDU platform through their instructors, they're really creating unique apps. And those apps are then turned over to a variety of different judges. As Heather is scrolling through here, what I want to highlight is who the judges were on this. So if you're thinking about your students really getting authentic feedback from someone other than just their instructor, this is an outstanding availability to them. So some of the contest judges for this were a co-founder for an organization called 8-Bit Studios, an iOS designer at Numerator, the CTO for Transio, which is a software platform for collecting a lot of our CCR&I data, and then the iOS developer and mentor for Mobile Makers EDU. He's a great involvement with this. His name is Wade Sellers. So what's nice is the students are getting that genuine feedback from their instructor, but then they're handing their product over to those that are in industry, and they're receiving feedback. And then on top of that, they're receiving accolades from this particular software company. I've been in our district for 3 years, and all 3 of the years, my instructors in each building have utilized this as a means for our students to, before we knew what a team challenge was, they knew the importance of getting genuine and authentic feedback and making the activities that are happening in the classrooms real, so that we're engaging students with the community, allowing students to really have their bar raised. It's one thing to make an app and have your peers see it. It's another thing to make an app and have those that are in industry see it, get feedback, and then are able to be awarded on top of that. And then teaching students how to use this information on resumes and applications, and taking it one step further than that. So that's one aspect that we involve our students in a team challenge in our IT area. But now the other one that I want to talk about is when we did a stay at home and had to go to remote, we were at a loss. We were not a district that could afford to send our MacBooks home with each student. And so we really needed to pivot. And my advice is to use a platform, a social media platform that I think is completely underutilized in education, and that's LinkedIn. And through LinkedIn, I reached out and just said, we're in need of a connection for our students so that their app development knowledge can continue at a time where they didn't have access to their tool. And the coolest thing happened as a result of that. There's an individual, his name is Kieran Stone, and he has a company called Square Roots that is in Ireland. So there's the challenge of having that time change and getting that information to the students. But Kieran zoomed in on our mobile apps classes, and all along the way, they were able to share with our students an app that was being developed to connect food delivery to first responders that were on the front lines fighting COVID. And what an awesome opportunity for students to have presented to them a real life scenario, a real life problem that was occurring all over the place, and then seeing behind the scenes how a company, as we all did, pivoted and shifted to put their resources into developing what was needed at the time for the community. So we are eternally grateful for Square Roots and for Kieran and his ability to keep our curriculum going. And from there, our teachers pivoted and gathered questions from students, gave those to Kieran, and he would Zoom with the students and ask and answer questions. And it led to one of our students being able to shift over and have an internship as a result of it. So we were very proud of our reach out. But that would be my two suggestions as far as IT is: look at the existing software that you have, and are there any contests for team challenges that your teachers or your students can engage in that way. And then the other is utilize LinkedIn. Reach out, put your ask out on LinkedIn. You know, definitely check out my LinkedIn or Twitter. You'll see, you know, I'm asking for internships. I'm asking for specific experiences on a regular basis. Sometimes I get nothing, and other times I, you know, get someone from Ireland that's willing to connect with our students. So, you know, keep at it, don't stop. And I'm a big believer of ask. Worst case scenario, you're going to be in the same spot you are, but chances are you're going to get a yes from somewhere, and you're going to be able to connect these authentic experiences with your students and with your curriculum.
Gina, very much do encourage you all to follow them on LinkedIn. They have they'll have a photo, a very specific ask. You know, it's a great resource to just engage folks who might be on there and kind of scrolling through. It's like maybe it's like the professionals' Facebook. Any questions or anything for Gina here? I also do love the piece, the reminder of like starting where you're at and the content that you already work with. I know as like a former high school teacher, there's so many moments when people are like, we're going to do this new thing, and we're going to do this new thing, and we're going to do this new thing. And you're like, but I already have all these things that I'm doing, and I'm already so exhausted just trying to like get those going right. You know, so looking back at that, thinking of how you can enhance it. And when you find that project, really being able to make that specific ask for it. Oh, I know. Michael, I saw your comment. I don't know if you want to talk about, said, have you heard of a company called Worked, who provides cybersecurity virtual externships? Sounds kind of cool. I have not heard of Worked. I don't know if you've knows about that.
I do. I've met with them initially. You know, the lovely world of SOPA that we were all dealing with. So we're in the process of doing our SOPA compliance with them. And that is a company that I do think has some promising IT internships virtually for our students. I know they have several connections in the Chicagoland area and are continuing to work out, but that is, you know, I think we all get so many emails that come through, respond to them. And that's how I got connected with Worked. So I think that's an outstanding opportunity as well, as, you know, just take the time. That minute respond to an email can turn out to be a very advantageous opportunity for your students.
Dina, any other resources like that you all are thinking about, or questions for Gina before we turn to Alex here? All right, it's getting to the end of the day. Thank you so much, Gina, for sharing, and we'll continue to share other IT learnings, and best of luck with the rest of the school year here. Excited about the endorsements too. So I'm going to turn to Alex, and I'll get my screen going up here again. And I always love this model. It's something that we all can do and we all need. So I'm really looking forward to Alex sharing about their work that they do over at Lake County.
Good afternoon. My name is Alex Scarino. I am the Professional Development Coordinator here at the Lake County campus. One of the things that we've been really working on the past couple of years is this Tier 1 program we have with our Computer Support Services class. What happens is the students in the class end up signing a contract. They have to have a C average. You can flip this off the slide, ma'am. They have to have and you can flip one more. Have to have a C average in the class to be able to participate in a Tier 1. When we're talking about Tier 1 support, we're talking about the first line of defense or help desk when we're talking about computer issues. The students actually end up working in tandem with the technology department. As you can see, over the past half year or school year, students have been getting about a third of or a quarter of our tickets assigned, which are basic support for them. They end up working in tandem for about the first month with myself, who works in the tech department, our assistant tech director, or technology director. And what we do is the first part of it, we model for them what it is to be a computer support or Tier 1 service. We go in and work with teachers, ask them questions, and eventually, just through giving up control, they're able to start doing a lot of this on their own. Students are expected to be professional. When they answer the phone, they state, this computer support services, this is, insert their name, and they go and they troubleshoot a lot of these issues. Most of the time, students are working on whether it's Chromebook issues for student Chromebooks or staff, basic hardware issues or workstations in different labs or computer teacher workstations as well. I just want to preface that the students are not privy to any student information, just to cover the SOPA and data privacy part of that. As the students are working through this in the ticketing system, we actually transfer over the tickets so they can actually use a professional tool. And then they document their steps that they've taken to troubleshoot something. For instance, let's say a teacher has a screen that's flickering on our smart boards. The students go in, they'll attempt to troubleshoot. Chances are they will not be able to fix that problem because it is something that's up with the cables. So they will document everything that they've done. Then it turns back over to our technology department, where myself or our assistant tech director will then pull that same student if we can, or a different student, and we'll go over what we would do on our end when it's passed to tier 1 support. So they get a lot of opportunities to shadow both myself and the assistant tech director. Afterwards, after it escalates up to us, the students are then able to see a different component of the technology work. For instance, during the beginning of the year, because they have their own set of laptops that they use for that particular class, our assistant tech director actually walks them through how do we image a computer for them, putting on all the correct programs and all the safety and the firewall components of technology they need. That way they're able to see exactly what goes on an IT standpoint in the school. One of the other projects that we're working on is students will be pulling cable with our technology department after spring break, which seems very minute, but being able to lay very fragile cables like fiber is important in our industry. Being able to make sure that they're running it through correctly and safely is important as well. Students have seen different things like demoing installation of smart boards, installing different computers. They work with me, particularly on anything that's cloud-based. So like any other school, we do use the Google Suite. So the students shadow me as I show them how do we remaneuver Chromebook carts, how do we put a student into our Google admin, and then into our virtual classroom as well. Students have done a lot with printer setup, cleaning, maintenance, troubleshooting. We do our Mac labs, so they've been working on repairing our old Mac computers and shadowing our technology director as he starts to image those computers for our multimedia class. The other big thing that they've been learning how to do is asset tagging as we're audited, and making sure that all of our computers are properly labeled and we know where they're located as well. As we're going through this with my technology director and myself, we've been looking at different improvements for the program as well. We're looking at really allowing this to be a second-year thing, because currently it's both first year, which is junior students, and second-year students. But first year in the computer support services class really focuses on those fundamentals of being in the computer industry, being able to take apart and troubleshooting and networking. While the more advanced classes are about server maintenance, we really want to start focusing on the second-year students for that to prepare them to go into industry. Additionally, we're looking at running it next year as more like an independent study session. So that way, because currently students are pulled in and out of class randomly, so that way they're assigned one day with us a week where they follow around the IT department member without whatever tasks they do. It could be something as simple as working in our SIS system to something more complex like taking apart a fridge or a freezer. That's something that one of our technology directors actually doing. Ideally, what we're also using this for is set students up for our summer internship, which we're bringing back this year. One of the things we want to do, as we talked internally, is we want to hire one of these students to work for us for the summer. I'm working with my technology director currently on that, but he's the one who's more spearheading that portion. The other big work-based learning thing we have is working with this corporation, slide please, called Leaf Through Leadership. It's something that was brought to us by one of our board members, Dr. Jim McKay, in Athletics 117. The community members, being all the schools within Lake County, actually donate their old Chromebooks and devices to us. During the school year, the students end up going through this diagnostic check and making sure the Chromebooks still work. They do end up taking them apart, salvaging parts from different Chromebooks to make new ones. And they end up resetting the Chromebooks to factory settings. We physically clean them and then package them away. any Chromebooks that are not do not meet our expectation are end up put aside for different parts, or we end up recycling them as well. These Chromebooks are typically about 5 to 6 years out of their end of life. So that while they don't do a school like us much good, the purpose of them is to send them to areas of need. For the past before COVID, the intention was to send them to Puerto Rico specifically. This year, we've actually sent about 100 Chromebooks out to Kentucky with their tornado issues. We've been trying to resupply some of their schools as well. The students actually get to see a lot of the fruits of their labor turn into something, as we currently have about 3 pallets in the back of our one of our shops sitting there waiting to be picked up by our team members to be transported down to wherever their end goal is. Between 2019 and 2022, do keep in mind there was a year of COVID where students did not work on any Chromebooks. They've refurbished about 1,000 of them over that period of time. This year alone, they're at 660. The first year was a little slower as we were using Chromebooks only from one district, and now it's expanded to a lot of our feeder schools, and even their like elementary school districts as well have been dropping things off all year. We do have another about 250 Chromebooks that went off to Antioch and Lakes High School before we had left for COVID. But all of these, again, are the purpose of them is to go to areas of need who might not have access to that kind of technology. What RTL does on their end is they end up sending teachers down to help train their teachers in integrating education technology in their classroom as well. Overall, you know, being able to see the students see the fruits of their labor, they are heavily invested in RTL because they know it's going to need. We have a very big demographic of students from various backgrounds. Knowing that they're helping kids like themselves does a lot of good for them itself. We've had the director of RTL come and talk about the importance of what they're doing. Again, one of our board members actually spoke about it at our board meeting 2 months ago about how proud he is of our students, and he actually stopped by and spoke to them about the work they've been doing. Overall, that's where we're at here at the tech campus, and we're always looking for different ways of integrating work-based learning, especially in 3 of our other computer programs. So those that you can see is a lot of the Chromebooks we have. There's another palette that I couldn't get a picture of because it was just messy. And then again, they've been going down to Puerto Rico and Kentucky itself. Any questions?
And I did include in here too for you all that checklist that they use for the Chromebooks, which is really helpful. And I love, there's such like a holistic space to this, right? As students are engaged. So they're starting to meet you all, get support, get learning about it. Then they're doing the help desk. I mean, I think we have our high school intern, Annie, is on the call right now. And they've had some moments where, you know, they're reaching out to a community and they're like, can I call you on the phone? And he's like, oh, okay, let's do this. It's such a good learning experience to be on the phone and sort through that and hear what they're saying. But then the relief through leadership, I would love to, can anyone get connected to that, or how, I don't know if there's any pieces about there. If there's a question in the chat too, before I'm rambling, asking my own. Yes, no, Katrina, love that.
Honestly, I'm the contact person for our little area. Typically if Dr. McKay or Terrence Dunleavy, who's the other operator, they kind of forward all the requests to me, and I'm filter out if we have the space. Like as we're clearing out for this year's project, we've created more space for more Chromebook and devices. Either I can come and get them, or we send our main Sky, or we can halfway. It is a little shocking how much is taken off, and how many of our board members are 100% supportive of it. Where we've gone, I think about half of our schools now drop at least a couple Chromebooks off this year at least.
Wonderful. Any questions for Alex about their program? I feel like we should get Alex talking to all the tech departments at all the schools about how they should be mentors and internship supervisors.
Thank you, guys.
Well, thank you all. If you have questions for Alex, please put those in the chat or as you think of them. But thank you again, Alex, for sharing that. And I think it's just an incredible model that you could have students really engaged to get that mentorship. I love the continuous mentorship, the independent study. I think will be really helpful for them too, in terms of scheduling. Hey, there's Annie. But I will then turn it to our Science Olympiad team here to talk through, again, kind of some background on them and some ideas for inspiration and some of their models within this work-based learning space in IT. And I know they have some additional industry guests on here as well.
Yeah. Thanks, Heather. And Alex, I have to say, in college, I did IT support for our libraries. And as a theater major, that was quite an interesting experience. But boy, did I learn customer service and triage, even though I knew nothing about computers. So I appreciate what you're doing. Welcome, everybody. We're Science Olympiad. John and I are going to be talking as staff members, but then we brought along some of our industry partners and national event supervisors to talk as well to the connections that we have to IT. So next slide, please. So we're going to quickly go over Science Olympiad 101 in case you're not familiar with us. Some of you are, and we will go so fast that if you have any questions, please feel free to follow up with us. And then we're going to talk a little bit about how we see ourselves on that work-based learning continuum, including career exploration, team-based challenges, and then mentorship in industry. So next slide, please. We've been around for 38 years. We started in Michigan, but we are in every state in the country, and we reach about 5,500 middle school and high school teams throughout the country. A team is 15 to 20 kids who prepare to compete at tournaments, invitational, regional, and state tournaments. And we also do have an elementary program that a lot of our middle school and high school students tend to support by going back to their elementary school and helping out with events. And then we also, on the other end of the continuum, we have a lot of alumni chapters throughout the country at colleges who that run tournaments and invitationals and also support teams through mentorship and tutoring. Next slide. And we are a CTSO here in Illinois, just in Illinois, but here in Illinois, we received CTSO status, which means we are in the echelon of folks like FFA and FBLA. You can use Perkins money to support some of our team expenses, although they are not great expenses, but you can do that. And also, I think it helps when you are trying to figure out what's going to count as CTE related activities. It's nice to be able to say that we're a CTSO. And if you have any other questions about that, I'm happy to answer them later as well. All right, next slide. So the reason that we got CTSO status is because we align to so many of the CTE pathways. Of course, today, we're going to be mostly speaking about IT, but we also, our competitive events or challenges, as we like to call them, align to 6 of the career pathways. And just to give you a sense of what that means when we say Codebusters aligns to information technology, we've got a rules manual that comes out every year with new rules and new competitive events. For Codebusters, students are practicing cryptanalysis, they're practicing busting codes, they're getting ready for jobs in cybersecurity, in analysis and data analysis, and in critical thinking skills that are needed for jobs in IT. Similarly, we've got circuit lab and detector building, write it, do it. We have some trial events that John will talk about later and explain how those things connect. But we wanted to give you a sense too that on any given team, students could be assigned to something like Codebusters, as well as bridge building, as well as dynamic planet. So they are, as a team, they are helping each other. They are working cross-curricularly, cross topics to prepare to compete in these tournaments. So they're bringing a lot of skills to the table. We also, on our website, we not only write the rules, but we also provide resources, study resources, as well as career connections too. You know, you really love Codebusters. Here's a job that you might be interested in. This is what this person would do, and this is how much they would make. So we have that information all on our website as well, trying to help students do a little bit of forward planning before they get to college. I think it was somebody from Ed Systems always said, or said to me once, college is an expensive exploration of activity. And that really stuck with me, that let's get these kids exploring in middle school and high school before the stakes become more expensive. So I think that's something that Science Olympiad is really good at, is that the kid who is generally interested in science but doesn't quite know what direction they want to go in, they can get their hands in a couple of different competitive events and try out a couple different things before they really start to focus in and hone in on what they want to do when they grow up. So next slide, please. Take it away, John.
There we go. Thank you, Katrina. So in terms of Science Olympiad and kind of the work-based learning continuum, and Katrina talked a lot about it on the last slide, but we see just the structure of the program offers itself as the opportunity for the kids to start the career exploration. The fact that there are a number of different activities that a team is going to do in a given year, as well as the kind of the breadth of topic areas, means that any given student, as Katrina said, is going to have the opportunity to try a bunch of different stuff, but also see their career or see a topic, play out in careers in a variety of different ways. If you think about it, and we'll see some more in a couple of seconds here when we talk about our events that get into the IT space, there's a variety of paths that a student interested could explore. And on top of that, we also offer a new program we call our MySO program. And this is for individual students that, again, it kind of mirrors our competitive focus, where there is a topic area each month and the students get resources to explore that topic area on their own, a bulk of which includes career-focused videos and career resources to allow them to, again, understand how their interest in circuits or electricity connects to a broader industry, broader fields of study beyond just that. Heather, if you'll flip to the next slide. Thanks. So then you can see with the MySO, we get into detail here. The beauty is it's free for all. For those of you that work with a middle school audience, we really design it kind of targeted for the middle school, though everything includes adaptations and extensions that are developmentally appropriate for high school students. It can be used in a variety of settings. This kind of was born out of the pandemic, kind of like some of the innovations that Gina talked about that Grays Lake's engaged with. MySO was sort of our solution to reaching kids who might be at home and needing additional support. You can see what it talks about in terms of our IT-related curriculum. In the past, we've done the circuits that's available. We also have coming up in later this year, we're going to do robots in May. And then for the 22-23 school year, we're going to be looking at waves and cybersecurity as well. You can just go ahead and jump to the next. All right. So in terms of our core competition, you can see we have specific IT related events that are as part of the challenge this year. So Codebusters, Katrina talked about, that's all about kind of crypto analysis and kind of pattern recognition and all that. We also have had in Circuit Lab, which is all about electronics and electricity and understanding kind of not only the science behind electricity and circuits, but then basic components and functions of circuits and design of circuits. And our classic IT related one, Write It, Do It, where this is essentially our paper-based programming challenge. One student will be shown an object, and they have to write out the instructions on how to create that object. And then those instructions are taken and given to their partner, who doesn't ever get to see the object. They just get the instructions in a box of materials. And then they're evaluated on how close the object relates. Also big this year, and we have 3 what we call trial events. So these are events that we're looking to bring into the program in the next few years. We're kind of trying them out to make sure the rules make sense to our teams, as well as also figuring out what resources we need to provide to not only enhance the experience for the kids, but also in some ways to make it accessible for some students in some schools. So this year, the 3 IT-focused trial events are cybersecurity, digital structures, and Write It, CAD It. Now I'm going to go in reverse order here, kind of talk about them a little bit. Write It, CAD It is an online version essentially of Write It, Do It, where instead of seeing a physical object and writing out the directions, a student is going to see a object in a CAD space, a CAD file. They're then going to create the instructions on how to create it. Those instructions are then going to be given to their partner, and they're going to use the CAD program and the parts to build the object. Digital structures is a great one that we built with our partner. And I thought it was funny, Gina talked about connecting with a group in Ireland. Digital structures comes to us by our partnership with an organization called SkyCiv, which does structural engineering software, and they're based out of Australia. And what they've done is they had originally reached out to us, and we were using their software as a tool to help kids learn about design and testing of structures that we had the kids build as part of the physical models the kids would build. Well, then under the pandemic, they made the extension and said, well, we could build an app inside our program that allows kids to compete. So every year, what'll happen is the kids will have to do whatever physical structure we're currently building. So this year it happens to be bridges. Then there'll be an equivalent version where they're going to use the structural engineering software to design and test their bridge as part of the competition as well. And last but not least, there's cybersecurity, where they're given a bunch of cybersecurity challenges. But at this point, when we jump to the next slide, I really want to bring in the gentleman behind it here in a second, after we get through our kind of competitive events and connections. So those are the events. And they also, if you think about the definition Illinois has for a team-based challenge, there's a real strong alignment to the team-based challenges. And under the idea of the competitive events, not only will the kids work together, but they also can receive mentorship through industry partners and their assistant coaches that their teams may set up. And they have the opportunity in particular events based on their preparation throughout the year to earn credentials and micro badges. So Heather, if you want to jump to the next one. All right. The other thing we have available to you guys is last year, Katrina worked with Heather, and we had a couple of our challenges turned over and created into the team-based challenges. They're featured in the iWin library. Now, 3 of them are really non-IT, but we also have Circuit Lab up there, and we're looking at getting a couple up this year as well, and probably into terms of like detector building and potentially cybersecurity. All right. Okay. Can I talk briefly about this, but I want to highlight the where the mentorship comes in component of all the team-based challenges. And that's really where the teams connect with industry partners, community partners, parents. You'll see some of our biggest Science Olympiad teams, they actually will have the parent volunteers who are industry experts come in and work with particular groups of kids. And then the interesting thing about it is that extends even further, because when a team goes from working with their particular industry partner locally to a tournament, they're also more often than not going to be meeting industry experts or faculty members from the host site of the tournament who will critique and help the kids with their project. And right now, a couple of our big national partnerships are with companies like Texas Instruments, Onshape, which is our CAD software, Google, we have Intel. But I think the other interesting piece of this is back to kind of one of the big challenges of the workplace, the kind of learning continuum, is how do you find internships? And so as a natural kind of extension of this program, our students are meeting a variety of people at a variety of different locations and kind of corporations. So it's more of there's a great potential for kind of mentorship or internship networking, if you will, by participating in the program. All right, next slide. All right, here's where I get to bring in the smart guys. So I really would like to introduce you to Dr. Peter Hung and Russ Burleson. They're great Science Olympiad volunteers and contributors. Peter started out as a student in the Science Olympiad program, and he now is with the Aerospace Corporation out in Southern California, where he also serves as our Southern California State Director. He's been an event supervisor for us, and he's mentored a ton of both current students as well as alums of the program. And on the other side, or the other individual I'd like to introduce, is Russ Burleson, who's been an engineer for over 30 years. And Russ got introduced to the program with his kids started as competitors. And he's gone on from being an assistant coach to an event supervisor to state directors in a couple of different states and helping to start school partnerships. So, and on top of doing all of that, Russ was the person that helped push on the cybersecurity event, and Peter pushed on our development of the Write It, CAD It, and digital structures events. So I'd like to bring them in and just start off with them, kind of talk about why do they think the events and, you know, align to what they saw as needs in their industry.
Thank you, John. Peter, did you want to go first?
No, go ahead, Russ.
Hi, my name's Russ Burleson. As John mentioned, I'm an engineer by trade. I've worked for for Procter & Gamble, Northrop Grumman, TRW, and the United States Air Force in a lot of different roles. And one of the things that I like about our IT events is that they really do align to where the needs of the industry, where we need people who not only can pass a test, but actually can lay hands on equipment and actually solve real-time problems. We want them to be able to do it in a team-based environment. And we want them to be able to, quite frankly, be able to handle doing these things under pressure. And during a time during the when we have these tournaments, what you really see is these kids pulling together. They're supporting each other. Even kids that don't make the team are developing study materials and training each other. And the joke or the old way we used to sell Science Olympiad is that it's track meet for science, and it really is done like that. Everybody is trying to help the varsity team, and you're always growing more seed corn. The other thing is that with the 23 events, you can find out, the kids can find out exactly what do they want to do. I can't tell you how many kids who come in thinking they want to be doctors and leave finding out they wanted to be an engineer, or finding out that they were more artistic. My son started out as a sort of an engineering kid. He did a lot of engineering things. He ended up going into production design in the world of art. And so you just never know where these events are going to take folks. And what we've tried to do is really try to figure out how can we put these tools and these opportunities into more kids' hands, whether they're in an urban environment, a suburban environment, rural environment, whether they're well-funded, not as well-funded, whether they have a lot of support at home, whether they don't have a lot of support at home or at school. So, Peter?
Thank you so much, Russ. So I absolutely agree. A lot of the events that we're doing in Science Olympiad are very much aligned with what scientists need nowadays. So my current role is a project leader at the Aerospace Corporation. And really what we do is we support the government and in particular with the US Space Force. And so, from where I stand, I can see that, yes, a lot of the needed skill sets are quite frankly missing from our current K-12 education. And so that's where really, cybersecurity, with Write It, Do It, we have Write It, CAD It, we have the skill sets for the students to understand how to use CAD. All of these things are skill sets that we think are absolutely critical for our students if they want to become a scientist or engineer. So definitely these are, and that's kind of why we created these events. Now, a lot of these events actually stem from other events we already had in Science Olympiad. So for example, our digital structure event started out as being a actual engineering event where students would build a bridge or a cantilever using balsa wood. But during the pandemic, one of the things we noticed was, well, how do we turn all of these things that are absolutely integral to Science Olympiad, the hands-on component, how do we turn that into something that we can continue to do during the pandemic? And one of the things we said was, well, hey, these are skill sets that we need as scientists, as engineers. Why don't we transform these events, these real life engineering events, and integrate the digital component, and so that students can really have the opportunity and really an excuse to learn about these skill sets that they're going to need. So that's kind of where all of these these new events came about. Yeah. Russ, do you want to add anything to that?
No, Peter, I think you've hit the nail on the head. One of the things that we've really done is we've also reached out a lot to not just each other, but we have reached out to the students, to the parents, to the coaches who are quite often a single science teacher trying to manage this team on top of everything else, and really finding out, okay, what are the things that the kids are clamoring for? And Peter is selling himself a little short because he and several of others actually worked together during the pandemic to help us go from what could only be described as it had to be an in-person tournament to now most of our tournaments are now done virtually. And it's been a game changer. And it's also helped us really reach a lot of other students, particularly those that might not be from a very large school or something. So it's been a really big transformation in the last couple of years.
Thanks, Russ.
Hey, the other question, quick guys, for you is in terms of the kids and participants in the program and like particularly the IT events, how do you see how they play out in terms of like their educational and career pathways? Russ, you talked about your own son learning, kind of like, okay, here's how I want to use what I've learned and my skills and passions. Like, how else do you see stuff playing out for people?
Well, one of the key things, much like Peter, I've hired a lot of IT professionals and a lot of STEM engineers and program managers and such during my time. I'm a lot older than Peter, so I probably I have to be careful because a lot of the things I'll say will sometimes date myself. But one of the key things is that honestly, having the well-rounded individual who can actually do something to completion. Because whether it's when you're hiring somebody in, you need to know that they can do things, they can figure out how to overcome obstacles, and you need to know they can do it in a team environment. One of the bigger problems that at least I've had when I was hiring folks at Northrop Grumman and other companies is we would sometimes get people who did very well in school, but did horrible in the workplace. Okay. Whereas here, they can actually show some examples of where they had to deliver in a team environment with unknown problems. It's not like we give them a section of a textbook to study. We actually give them a genre. Like with Circuit Lab, it's almost everything that's covered in undergraduate electrical engineering. And we give it to them at a middle school math level. And these kids continue to impress. And when you look at the digital structures, that is straight out of the statics, mechanical engineering coursework that every engineer has to take. And they have to, and we've got kids who are just doing amazingly well at these things. Peter?
Yeah, definitely. And, you know, as Russ is talking about the teamwork aspect of it, I really think that, you know, as someone who is passionate about STEM education in general, I support Science Bowl, I support Science Olympiad, Oceans Bowl, and a number of different STEM outreach programs. I think the real selling point about Science Olympiad is really the hands-on aspect and the teamwork there. I can tell you that if it weren't for the Rube Goldberg device event in Science Olympiad in high school, I would not have found out about Caltech. I would not have ended up at Caltech for both my undergrad and my PhD program. So I personally owe my scientific career to Science Olympiad. And that's why I'm giving back today. And you know, that teamwork aspect is more than just for our competitors. As I'm working with the various alumni group at Caltech, at UCLA, at UC Irvine, and the various universities, as they're helping put together the competition now that they've gone through the process, then they're giving back to the program. I'm seeing that they also have the opportunity to work together and to really explore more of the various skill sets, may that be cybersecurity or using CAD or, you know, various IT skills, and really working together as a team to put together the tournament so that our competitors can continue to benefit from Science Olympiad. So I think it's, you know, it's a program that has come full circle for many of us. In fact, each year, about 20 to 25% of the students at Caltech have competed in Science Olympiad. And I think this is a testament to how Science Olympiad has really impacted so many of our lives.
That's a new stat for me, Peter. Thank you for sharing that.
Of course.
Thank you both, Peter and Russ. Really, I think you brought it home why this is important, right? It's getting kids ready for what's next, whatever that looks like. And we don't know what their jobs are going to look like, but we know what skills they're going to need. So thank you for mentioning that. Last slide is our contact information. Please feel free to reach back out to us, ask any specific questions, get connected to the Illinois Science Olympiad State Director to start a team, or at least to explore the MySO curriculum, which is free and available to any teacher or parent or student who wants to use it. So we're happy to connect with you and help you navigate what we have available.
Thank you all so much for sharing today. And I especially love, you know, Peter and Russ, I'm thinking about my own bias, not knowing enough about IT. You think of it as a very kind of individual career, right? You do your thing, you show up, and it's like, no, there's a major team component here. So I think, you know, some individuals who might think they're going to get in IT and be able to just like hide behind a computer and never talk to anyone. I don't know if there's any job that's really like that. So just appreciate again the reminder about the importance of the embedding of the essential and the technical skills, and listening to that student voice too, and families. But what do you actually want to learn more about, and what are you interested in? you know, we say this a lot in these spaces that we spend a lot of time designing work-based learning. And we need to make sure it's something that students and communities will actually show up for, right? And that folks will want to mentor on as well. So appreciate you all so much for sharing today. And we have some moments here too, if there's any questions or anything for our Science Olympiad team here. And I think just, sorry, I have one last ramble on top of my head. One thing I'm thinking about too is like the interdisciplinary nature as you can with team-based challenge is so cool and so important because as been mentioned, you might think you want to do one thing and you show up to the challenge and you're like, I actually really like that component. I tell a story about wanting to be a marine biologist and then interning at the shed and realizing like, this is not for me, but it was late in my expensive exploration piece, Katrina, in college. But you know, it's hard to do sometimes depending on your school structure to do those interdisciplinary pieces, right? And so this space kind of outside the regular classroom for students to explore those and a team setting is really valuable.
And one thing I might would add, when we talk about these team involvement, you know, if you look at like the middle school, it's anywhere from 6th grade to 9th grade. And if you look at, you know, the high school division, it's 9th to 12th grade. Mm-hmm. And there are thousands of stories where you'll have a very junior person, like a 6th or 7th grader, that'll be taken under the wing by a 9th grader. And one of the things I just remembered is that there was this one 6th grader who was so concerned on her first tournament, she actually got herself physically sick. And none of the coaches could calm her down, but the 9th grader could. Mm-hmm. And then that team made it all the way to nationals at the end of the year. And those two had made the varsity team and they were going into nationals. And this poor 9th grader, it was the culmination of everything she'd been working for. And then she got sick the day of nationals, and the only person that calmed her down was her 6th grader. Mm-hmm. And by the way, that 6th grader just got accepted to MIT, and the 9th graders in the medical school now, and they're still best friends. So that's just sort of how Science Olympiad works. Peter, I'm sure you've got 1,000 stories like that as well.
And our students are incredible mentors for one another, right? We're always looking for external partners, but our own students can be those mentors. Sorry, Peter.
No, I was just going to agree with Russ that there are definitely a lot of examples of that. So thank you for sharing that, Russ.
Especially, I know those of you all who will be exploring in the middle school space, what career exploration can look like, right? Remember your 9th through 12th graders who've had some coursework, they've had some work-based learning experiences, and how they can go in and support those middle schoolers. And even I know there's, you know, lots of conversations happening about what it looks like in middle school to pick your CTE pathway as you go into high school, right? It's the flip from choosing what you're going to do after high school to choosing what you're going to do in high school, right? And having that mentorship from high school students who are taking those classes and will speak very candidly about those classes and about those experiences to middle schoolers just really helps them figure that out and sort them out for themselves. Well, thank you all again so much. I'm going to share out the presentation and recording and all these pieces here. If you have any recommendations, our next ones are going to be in finance or business or arts and communications. If you'd like to present, if you have others you might recommend to present on that, just let me know. We'll have another focused WBL Continuum session coming up soon here. But thank you again, everyone, for coming today, and happy Tuesday.